come out.
Omar MAKRAM is one of hundreds of thousands of immigrants from the Muslim world who have come to Sweden in the past decade. In 2016, his asylum application was turned down. He wanted to make sure he would not be sent back to Egypt, but he'd run out of options, apart from one.
What is the one thing that no Muslim would ever do? And that would be to desecrate the Koran. I had a copy of the Koran, tore it apart, spat on it, stomped on it and set it on fire.
MAKRAM's actions, which he made public on YouTube, puts him at risk.
At the end of this video, I will be burning the Koran.
In Egypt, he could be charged with blasphemy and defending Islam. He hoped the video would show Sweden's migration board that, as a former Muslim, his homeland would be unsafe. MAKRAM's asylum application was finally granted in 2017. Fast forward to 2022, and the desecration of Islam's holy book by another man has sparked some of the worst rioting Sweden has ever seen, and begun a debate over freedom of expression, a pillar of Sweden's constitution, ahead of the general elections in September.
Really, we can go down one of two paths right now. Either stand their ground and say, well, here we have a liberal democracy, here we have freedom of speech, and we are going to protect it, or decide to compromise and basically establish a place for religious fundamentalists.
This is Rasmus Paludan, leader of the Danish STRAM KURS, or hardline party. He's aiming to stand in September's Swedish general elections thanks to his dual citizenship. Paludan has been touring Sweden, setting fire to copies of the Koran. His agenda? To show that mass immigration has harmed the country and created a violent sub-society. He also argues there should be no limits on freedom of speech.
I don't criticize Muslims. I merely criticize Islam, because Islam is an idea and you can criticize that, and that is a very fundamental right in Sweden. The moment you start outlawing certain expressions and certain opinions, then there is no longer freedom of speech.
Paludan's presence caused major riots in several cities, the worst at Easter this year, when more than 100 police were injured. Some politicians in Stockholm have argued for laws to be changed, to give police powers to stop demonstrations like Paludan's. That makes Sweden less like Sweden and more like Egypt, according to MAKRAM, whose video on YouTube led to him becoming a podcaster and newspaper columnist.
That's an extremist.
Not being able to insult religion, any religion, including Islam, is basically a violation of what a liberal democracy is, because that means that in practice you have blasphemy law in the country.
But some Muslims fear freedom of speech gives extremists free rein to harass them.
We civilized people must put a stop somewhere. Otherwise, what happened to the Jews during the Second World War could happen again. It started like that. As the philosopher said, where they burn books, they will also ultimately burn people.
In the middle of this battleground are policemen like CHALID Raja. A devout Muslim, he came to Sweden from Lebanon as a child. During Rasmus Paludan's Koran burning tour, he was on riot duty. It was also Ramadan. Raja fasted all day and dealt with rioters all night. It made him disillusioned at the actions of those claiming to defend Islam.
Afterwards, I became disappointed and sad that people went out in religion's name to use violence to solve this problem. I'm police, I'm a Muslim, I'm Swedish, I'm Palestinian, I'm Arab. There's many sides to this for me. My mother fled a war. Sweden gave me security and an education. Do we stop Paludan doing this because it creates chaos? Maybe if it was up to me, I would put a stop to it. But it's the Constitution I'm protecting. It's not him. People think when we stand there, why the hell are you protecting him? But it's not like that.
Raja and his colleagues were attacked in the place he grew up, the Rosengård estate in Malmö. It's the second time there have been riots here over Koran burnings. Paludan came to Malmö in 2020 as well. The Easter 2022 riots saw residents' cars set on fire. When Syrian journalist QAIS meets us, the scorch marks are still on the ground. He believes the roots of the trouble go far beyond mere anger in the Muslim community.
In 2016, you're talking about tens of thousands of people coming from war-torn countries such as Syria to Sweden just at once. It's not an easy thing. I suppose there is a problem with the cultural differences, but it worked before. I mean, Sweden has received Iraqis before. It received Lebanese, it received Palestinians. I didn't see that much problem of burning cars, but does Sweden have a problem with that? Yes, it does. It's the accommodation, it's the housing, it's job opportunities for those people. And Sweden has picked the responsibility, and they are working on that. I'm not happy with all what they are doing, but at least they are trying.
Sweden must now decide if it wants to compromise on its ideals and constitution, or risk more riots as the elections approach.